is the Chapter 5 review homework. And in this case, what we're doing is we're graphing two equations that are in the slope-intercept form, or as we like to call it, the y equals mx plus b form. And in order to solve this, you need to solve each system of equations by graphing, and you will solve the system by finding the intersection of the two equations. But we have to graph the equations first and then find the point where they intersect. So the best way to graph when you have these kinds of equations is to first look for the y-intercept, which is the b in the y equals mx plus b form, and then look for the slope, or use the slope to draw the rest of the line. So if we look at this first one, which is the e, we see that the y-intercept, I'm underlining in pink right now, is 3. And then the slope is -3. So the 3 at the end of the equation, the y-intercept, let's graph that on the y-axis. So we count up from the origin, 1, 2, 3, and we put that point right there on the y-axis. Okay, so now it's important to look at the slope. And the slope is just an integer, -3. So we can assume that that's -3 over 1. And so we move forward 1 in the positive direction along the x-axis, and then we need to go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. So our next point on the line is right here. Okay, so let's do that again. We go over 1 in the positive direction, and then we go down 1, 2, 3, and we make another point on the line. So over 1, down 3. So we're always moving over to the right when we're figuring out what the x direction is. Okay, so now we've got one line there, graphed. So let's graph the second line. So for the second line, again, we start out with the y-intercept, which is 3. And so there it is on the y-axis. And now we need to look at the slope. So in this case, it's just x, which means there's a 1 in front of it. So the slope is 1. So we will move over in the positive direction on x, 1, and then we will go up 1 to make our next point. So over 1, to the right, and up 1. Over 1, and up 1. All right, and we can go in the opposite direction too. So now we know basically the direction of the line. Okay, so now we can draw a line that connects all of these dots together. All right, and we see where our intersection is. So the intersection is right there at that point. And if we look at that point as a coordinate, then we know that it's the x coordinate is 0 and the y coordinate is 3. So there's our point of intersection and our solution to these first two equations. Okay, so let's look at one more, and then I'm going to do one of the equations that has slope in a fraction form. Okay, so let's look at O. And first of all, of course, we look for the y-intercept, which in this case is 2. And so let's go ahead and graph that on the y-axis. So that's right there, positive 2. And now we're looking at the slope for that line, which is -3. So we go over to the right 1, and then we need to go down 3 this time till we get to the next point. So over 1 and then down 3 to get to the next point on the line. And of course, now that we have 3 points, we can actually graph these points, which look like this, basically. The line's a little wiggly, but you get the idea. Okay, and let's graph the other line, which we start out at -3. So I'm looking on the y-axis, 1, 2, 3. Here's -3 on the y-axis. And then we need to go over 1 and up 2 because our slope is 2. So there's the next point. Over 1, up 2. Next point. Over 1, up 2. Over 1, up 2. Okay, so now we've got these points, and we can connect those together. All right, and it looks like our point of intersection is right here. Excuse me, so that point is actually, looks like the coordinates are, the x-coordinate is 1, and the y-coordinate is -1. Okay, so that's the solution to those 2 equations. So let's do another one where we've got one of these fractional type slopes, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so we still have the y-intercept, so let's go ahead and plot that point on the y-axis. And then we notice that the slope is 1/2. So that means, because there's a 2 on the bottom, that means we need to go over 2 in the x direction. And then we look at what's on top, and it's a +1. So we go up 1. So over 2 and up 1. Over 2 and up 1. So this is just a different way of showing what the slope is. It's not an integer. It's 1/2. So the bottom, so it's the change in y over the change in x. So the bottom is 2 over to the right, the x part, before we go up 1. Okay, so now we can draw this line and connect the dots. And let's look at our second equation, which we have a -1 as the y-intercept. So that's down here. And then the slope is just 1. So we'll go over 1, up 1, 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 and over 1, up 1. So it looks like we finally had the intersection there. Okay, so let's connect these dots. And it looks like the point of intersection is right here. So the solution to our equation is 1, 2, 3, 6, and up 5. So 6 and 5. All right, so maybe we'll do one more of these ones with the fractions. So let's look at R. So here we've got -1 as the y-intercept. So I'll plot that on the y-axis. And then we've got a 3 over 2. So it's change in y over the change in x. So the change in x is a +2. We go over 2. And the change in y is 3. So I'll go up 3 before I make the next point on the graph. And then we'll do that again. Go over 2, that's the change in 2, and up 3 before I make the next point. And of course, we can go in the opposite direction too. Okay, so let's connect these points up together. And we'll do the second line. This one has a positive 1 as the y-intercept. And then the change in y is a 1, and the change in x is a 2. And these are both positive. So I'll go over 2 and up 1, over 2 and up 1, over 2 and up 1 to make the points on the line. And I'll extend a few back this way. And then we can draw the line connecting all of these points. All right, and it looks like the intersection is right here. And so if we were going to write that, let's see, the x-coordinate is 2, and the y-coordinate is also 2. All right, so I hope that's helped you out a little bit with the graphing.